This is a short video showing you how to solve simultaneous equations. This is a B grade topic at GCSE. The way that I solve them is by drawing a great big cross with the question in the top left corner here, and this reminds me that I need 3 stages before I've solved the whole set of equations. My first step is to get either the x's to be the same or the y's to be the same in both sets of equations. And I can see that the simplest way of doing that here would be to multiply the bottom equation by 2 so that I would have 4 x's in both equations. An alternative would be to multiply the top equation by 2 and the bottom equation by 3, and that leaves me with 6 y's in both equations. But I'm going to stick to the simplest method. So I'm taking the first equation as it is and not changing it. I'm taking the second equation and I'm multiplying everything by 2, which turns it into that. So that's my first step done. What I've got to decide now is whether I want to add the 2 equations together or subtract them from each other. And the whole point of this step is that I'm trying to cancel out whichever letter it is I've got the same of from my first step. So I've got the same number of x's, so I'm trying to cancel out the x's. Would I have to add the 2 equations together or subtract them from each other in order to cancel out the x's? Well, if I do 4x take away 4x, they will cancel out. There's a little note here that if the sign is the same, then you subtract. So the sign of my x's is the same, they're both plus. That's telling me why I subtract. So I subtract the whole of the second equation from the whole of the first equation. 4x take away 4x leaves me with nothing. 3y take away 4y leaves me with minus 1y. And 11 take away 12 leaves me with minus 1. So now I've got an equation that's only got one letter in it. So it's a nice simple equation that I can solve easily. If minus 1 lot of y is minus 1, then I move the minus 1 to the other side where it becomes a divide, because at the moment it's a times, so y is minus 1 divided by minus 1, which is plus 1. Getting this far gets you 2 marks out of 3 in the exam, and for the final mark you've got to work out what the remaining letter is. So far I've figured out what y is, so I'm going to go back here and choose whichever equation I think looks easiest. So in this case I've chosen the top equation, and I rewrite it, but instead of putting a y into it, I put the number that I found that represents y. So 4x plus 3y, and y is 1, so 4 lots of x plus 3 lots of 1 equals 11. That gives me a nice simple equation. Move the 3 to the other side, 4x is 8, so x is 2. And if you've got time in the exam, you can double check these answers by taking them and putting them back into the other equation and making sure that they make it work. So with my head, 2 lots of 2 plus 2 lots of 1 would be 4 plus 2, which is 6. So that does work. Okay, I've checked it. If you pause the video now, I'll give you a few moments to try example 2. So here is example 2. I chose to get the y's to be the same in each equation, so I've left the first equation as it is, and I've taken the second equation and times everything by 3. That takes me to there. Now I'm deciding whether I add or subtract the 2 equations in order to make the y's cancel out against each other. And I'm going to add, because 3y added to minus 3y will cancel. So I add the whole of the first equation to the whole of the second equation. 5x plus 12x is 17x. 3y plus minus 3y cancels out. And 7 plus 27 is 34. So I've got 17 lots of x is 34. So x must be 2. And then the same as before, I choose whichever equation looks easiest, and I put my 2 into that equation in place of the x, which leads me to y is minus 1. So pause your video, try example 3. And here is the answer to example 3, which you can pause on the screen and see if you got it right.